If you're a hooper, being able to effectively train by yourself can unlock so much for you. But here's the thing about training alone. There's no defense and there are no teammates. It's still absolutely doable and actually needed to reach your potential, of course, but anytime you're alone, you're gonna have to find creative ways to challenge yourself, or at least as you become a more advanced player. So this may be one of the biggest skills you can have as a player.
One of the biggest skills that you guys can develop is being able to challenge yourself when nobody tells you how to do that, right? If you're in the gym by yourself and you can find different ways to challenge yourself on your finishing, on your shooting, on your ball control, and know what it feels like to be difficult, to be challenged, to be a little bit frustrating, and do that every single day, that's very important. It's not any magic drill, it's just finding things that challenge you and getting to work on those.
Because although something like this doesn't hurt and is good at times, just getting up reps, it's always gonna be different in a game, right? Higher speeds, having to make decisions, adjusting and adapting to the defense, you got contact, and it's overall just more difficult in a game. So I'd imagine your question is now, how do I train by myself? How do I get the most out of this time? Well, let's dive into it. So we'll cover 3 different big categories in this video, starting with visualization. If you watch most high-level players train, they're super creative with how they visualize and bring the game to life around them. And you can see this. Kyrie even talks about it here.
The imagination that I have has empowered me to be able to work on my craft and just imaginary defenders to me.
So the big thing I want y'all to notice here is the imperfection. It's not just straight line drives and the perfect shots with your eyes locked in the whole time, because that rarely happens in game. They're going to be slightly off balance footworks, look-offs, the timing may be off on some moves or shots, and a bunch of other imperfections you'll see naturally occur in a game. So we got to implement this by ourselves as we're training alone. Now of course this will never be the same as actual defense because you're not reacting and dealing with physicality and limited space, but it's still a great tool. This time in the gym, visualizing by yourself is needed to unlock new levels of creativity and confidence dealing with imperfection. But here's the catch. To be able to visualize the game well, you need a ton of playing experience. For example, I played a bit of a bunch of sports growing up, but I could probably never vividly visualize for American football, soccer, and other sports like I could in hoop, just because I haven't seen as many situations. So playing actually makes your individual training better. So the best way to do this, just put yourself in different situations that you see in a game, closeouts, ball screens, transition, etc. Picture the entire court, and every rep, have the defense do something different, and go 100% intent each rep. Next is finding ways to challenge your more compartmentalized skills, like shooting or finishing. So I'll go through and give you a quick guide on how to train each one in an individual setting. For shooting, we got a few different ways, all of which should probably be included. And in my opinion, this is probably the most beneficial to train alone, and you'll see why. First off is finding different qualities to deliberately train, like balance here, maybe range, potentially working on fluidity, the speed of your shot, just overall finding different specific qualities to target with different drills. Then, of course, we need a super high level of repetition to improve, but we're gonna have to make sure this repetition is quality. So preferably with these repetitions, 1, they're on the move a bit or at least represent game situations where you'll likely be moving into it, and 2, there's slightly different shots each time to implement some variability into the drill. A scientific concept that's proven over and over again to help you improve at motor patterns like shooting a lot easier. Now, if you can't shoot 40% on standstill shots, you may just want to go more block style reps until you can. In other words, just shooting the same shot every time, and then begin to microdose tougher shots into your work. On the flip side of that, if you're an advanced shooter and you want to take it to the next level, you can go with some differential learning work, which is essentially throwing tough challenges at yourself, many of which you actually won't necessarily see in the game. So again, this isn't really meant to represent what we do in the game. Maybe you're picking the ball off the floor, maybe you're catching it from a weird situation, shooting from a different release point, but it's really just challenging you to be adaptable and learn how to problem solve and shoot and make the shot in any situation. And the great thing about shooting by yourself is that because you have to get your own rebound, there's already a level of variability and space learning included. So even if you're just doing regular spot up shots, you're still moving between reps, and as a result, it's harder for it to be too easy like you'll see with some block shooting. Then lastly, training psychological tools is key by including goals on every single drill. Maybe say you gotta make 7 out of 10 to move on. Try to get as many as you can without missing 2 in a row. See how many consecutively you can make. This adds in a bit of pressure to each shot, which transfers big time to the game. Next up is finishing. And finishing training by yourself is very interesting because it's such a close quarters skill that it's very much so affected by defense.
Especially when you're by yourself, like let's say you just go to the court and train by yourself, every layup that you do is naturally going to be easier than it is in a game. Why? There's no defense. You don't have anybody coming out of nowhere trying to block your shot. You don't have contact. You're not like as tired most of the time. So we have to find ways to challenge ourselves, challenge different qualities that come back to help us in a game.
So without defense, players can fall into the trap of making it too easy. So same thing here. I want you to find stuff that's difficult enough and where you're missing at least 30 to 40% of your finishes, which is gonna take some creativity for non-beginners. So this could be challenging yourself to pick up new footworks and coordinations on finishes. This could be exaggerating your touch work. So rather than going with a mic in where you're probably making 10 out of 10 most times, you're doing stuff like this, develops the skill of putting the ball on the rim in a variety of situations. Or trying body control challenges like these to help you become a better mid-air athlete, find the rim, have touch and control on the way down, and much more. Here are a few solid drills that display this.
So I like starting off with some coordination work to get warmed up. On all of these, we're challenging ball control, all right? So being able to cuff and manipulate the ball off the dribble into the finish, as well as touch. So like when you're trying to get it above the backboard here. Some movement challenges where we got to control our rotational momentum, stay on balance, be fluid with it. And I say this on all my workout videos. Notice how we're losing the ball, we're missing. It's not clean cut, it's not perfect. This is how your finishing work should be, not making 100 Micans in a row. Sorry, I just had to say it. Then we're ramping up the intensity a bit and going with an eyes closed finishing drill here. We're dribbling towards the basket, trying to open our eyes as late as possible. So we really have no idea where we are, but as we're in the air and we open our eyes, we gotta be able to find the basket, adapt, and finish. Honestly, a decent ball handling drill too. Then I like to end these finishing sessions just challenging ourselves, challenging our body control, our athleticism. So we're setting this hurdle pretty high and then pushing ourselves to get over this and finish at the rim in a new way each time.
So remember, if you're a beginner, stuff like this may be difficult enough for you to be productive if you're missing them like you see me doing here. If not, progress up to stuff that challenges you. Next is ball handling, which once again comes down to finding sufficient difficulty. Look, I don't have inherent beef with drills like this. I just think that if you're doing 20, 30, 60 dribbles in a row with no trouble, it's too easy. Again, we need struggle to learn. And if you want to do an easier warm-up just to get the feel of the ball first, sure, that's cool with me. Just make a slight adjustment for me and do it like this, where it's more free-flowing and you're moving with it, trying out different styles. Because movement is probably the best thing that you can focus on when you're working on your handle solo. Things that challenge your footwork, developing new movement patterns, trying to get more fluid with the ball, working on changing speeds and relaxing better with the ball, challenging your deceleration and change of direction ability. These are all huge. You also got to realize how many different types of dribbles and ways to manipulate the ball there are. It's not just pounding it, so being able to manipulate the ball like this and challenging this in a variety of ways is also a great bang for your buck in solo sessions, especially if you can combine this with some movement. And then lastly, freestyling. Just trying things out and experimenting while you accumulate a ton of reps. Sometimes it just feel like you're dancing when you're training ball handling alone. Finally is court vision and feel, which I'm going to be honest with you, I think are almost impossible to train alone. Yes, watching film is huge here, 100%, but nothing beats going and playing 3v3 or 5v5 and learning and developing a feel for all the patterns, timing, and IQ that go into the game. Okay, so I know that was a long category, but definitely needed. Third and final though is experimentation and figuring out new things. Here's what I mean by this. Many times the best place to experiment with new techniques, moves, skills, etc. is in the gym where it's just you and your game. Try some crazy stuff. Think outside of the box of as many possibilities as you can and get after it. One of the best ways to do this is with imitation. Sometimes just watching really good players and then going to the court and trying to visualize and imitate this is one of the most valuable drills you can do.
Well, I think that I've tried to take aspects of a lot of people. For example, I think when I first got in, I really liked Sergio Llull, Nando, Teodosic, Keith Langford, Tyrese Rice, Malcolm Delaney. As I grew into the league, I think obviously Spanoulis was great to watch. Demontides was amazing. different aspects of different people's games was just something I like to watch and just dissect how they did it and see what aspects I can take and just put into my game and make it my own.
But of course, once you experiment a bit alone, you gotta go try it on live defense. I can't stress that enough with all of this. So overall, try to get comfortable with all of these, and then get good at progressing and regressing drills. In other words, moving the difficulty up and down to find the perfect level. If you want all this done for you, feel free to just make it easy by checking out the Virtual Academy that has programs for all of this and more. Also, if you want to dive into the science and the depths of all of this knowledge, make sure to check out my book, Deep Skill, which is primarily aimed towards coaches and trainers, but I've had a ton of players read it too, just learning how to train themselves. They've really liked it as well. So make sure to check out all of these in the link in the description. If not, as always, get to it. I'm excited to see you guys' results. I'll catch you next time.